Time to welcome back to the Morning Magazine. His name is David Stokes. He is a policy analyst with the Show Me Institute for this week's edition of Show Me at the Lake. Good morning, David. How are you?
Well, I'd be doing better if the Cardinals had played a little better last night, but hopefully they'll turn it around this evening.
I was going to text you last night, and I'm like, should we just talk about the Cardinals on this week's edition of Show Me at the Lake? Because there were a couple of actual newsworthy things out of there, but we'll leave that to some other people to discuss. But we've actually got a pretty interesting program here because we've managed to talk. Well, we're going to be talking about lawsuits and food. So it's not a bad not a bad trade-off, I guess.
Well, those are two of the most common things in America now. It's good in one case and not so good in the other.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's start with Morgan County and the lawsuit. Now, we've talked about this a few times, and there was a county official there who had sued the county over back pay. It went to court. Retired judge came out, ruled in favor of the employee, and she is due about $93,000. Well, since that time, now there have been some more developments, and things are not so happy, shall we say, at the Morgan County Courthouse right now.
Well, it sounds like just an ugly situation, and I know you've done a great job in sort of talking about it with your listeners, and Lake News Online has got a nice big story on it, tensions escalating at the courthouse. This really seems to be an ugly situation. I mean, I think anybody who looked at this lawsuit and tried to be neutral about it agreed that the treasurer deserved back pay. Now, the exact amount of back pay people can quibble over, I guess, but she certainly deserved something because what they did in not paying her the same that other elected officials were paid was wrong and also illegal, which was the point of the lawsuit. So there's no doubt that she deserves something. She went to court. She won. She won hands down. It sounds like the judge ruled completely in her favor. And it's time for the Morgan County commissioners to just pay what the judge says they owe and move on. I mean, it's $90,000 approximately. It's not $900,000. It's not going to bankrupt the county. I mean, just pay what they owe and move on. And I'm, as your listeners know, I'm not a lawyer, and I've never been to the Morgan County Courthouse, but I did work in county government for 6 years before I joined Show Me Institute. So I know what it's like to be working in a county government. I worked as an aide at the St. Louis County Council, which is the equivalent to the Morgan County Commission. And when you have this level of nastiness that it sounds like you've had at the last hearing or two, and this sort of infighting among the officials, that's not good for the residents of the county. That's not good for taxpayers. They just need to stop this, and you stop it by paying what the judge said you owe and end the case and move forward.
It's we have reached out to the Morgan County Commission, and they've not, as of yet, responded to our request for comment on this particular situation, and they may not until it's all rectified. It's all taken care of. But talk a little bit about when you were involved with county government as an official. You mentioned with the county commission there. I'm sure there were times when that group just didn't get along. Those things happen all the time.
They do happen, and it's unfortunate when it gets personal, like it appears to have gotten here. With just reports in the paper about a hostile work environment for the treasurer and others. But yes, I mean, when I worked as an aide at the St. Louis County Council, there was a 4-3 Republican majority, and the council has 7 members. County commissions, of course, have 3. But as a charter county, St. Louis County is a little different. But we had a 4-3 Republican majority. We had a Democratic county executive as the primary executive of the county. So absolutely there was times where they fought. And there were, unfortunately, probably times where it did get personal. But I don't recall anything like this that I'm reading where it's just where they're suing each other, and now that the lawsuit is settled, it's being appealed further, even though I don't think they've got much chance of success on appeal. And, I'm not just spouting off here. I mean, one of the commissioners voted against the appeal. At least one of the 3 county commissioners agrees it's time to just pay it and put it behind the county and move forward. But this level of nastiness and antipathy among elected officials is not good for the community. And I don't recall something like it sounds like this is really bad. I don't recall anything like this when I worked for St. Louis County government. And fortunately, it's not something that I think happens very often at the Missouri County level. But right now it's unfortunate for the Morgan County taxpayers. And you just got to end it and move on. Sometimes in life, the best thing to do is just cut your losses and move forward. And that works that works in government and politics as well as anything.
And given the current political climate on the national stage, it's also very interesting because you would think, and again, without talking with the commission, I don't want to sound like I'm talking out of turn here, but you would think that you would, as a government official of one type or another, you would look to try to find a solution rather than continue infighting or start an infight. In other words, find a solution.
You're absolutely right, Manny, and we need to see that at the national level. As we discussed, I think a few weeks ago about the shutdown. I'm conservative. I believe in limited government, but that's not to say that in every case you fight to the death, especially when your side hasn't won all the elections and the other side has won and holds two of the three branches of the federal government. And here it works the same at state government and at local government. I mean, divided government is a good thing. You never want one party rule to too much of a level. That is never good for government. But most importantly, the more local you get for government, where it's really about neighbors and people who live in the same community. I mean, when you move beyond just policy disagreements into personal infighting and look, they owed her money. Anybody who looked at this neutrally would have to agree that the treasurer was owed some level of back pay. And they lost in court. They should have settled well before it went to trial. They didn't. They lost. Just pay it. Say, I'm sorry, we were wrong. We have a responsibility to the citizens and the taxpayers to just focus on going forward together. And just, hey, admit you were wrong. You lost. Pay it and move forward, and everybody will be better off that way.
And that's not always easy to do, David, and because of vested interests that some people may have in the issue one way or another. I think an interesting part of this story has been, who was actually presiding over it. They actually pulled a judge out of retirement who was not from Morgan County, was actually a former Howard County judge that made the decision. So clearly they were trying to, or some people were really trying to get as unbiased of an opinion as possible when you look at the entire issue of back pay.
Right, and I think it was a smart idea. I understand the judges recused themselves from the area because they knew everybody involved. So bringing in a retired judge, which is not uncommon for these situations, was the right move. I mean, the win was overwhelming. It wasn't like he said, well, both sides have great arguments here. I mean, the treasurer won hands down. Just end it. I mean, I'm again not a lawyer. Many of my family members are, so I feel like I've certainly heard my attorney parents and wife discuss these types of problems. And look, the saying is the worst settlement is oftentimes better than the best judgment, because when you settle it, you've got finality and you can move forward with your life. And that's what they need to do in Morgan County right now.
Well, we will keep our eyes on Morgan County. We'll look to see if perhaps maybe they can just deal with this situation and obey the judge's ruling and move forward with other issues, which I'm sure they do have plenty of other issues on their plate as well. We're talking with David Stokes from the Show Me Institute on Show Me at the Lake here on the Morning Magazine on News Talk 1150, 97.5 KRMS. Another interesting story that we are going to talk about here a little bit is the issue of food trucks or food mobiles in Camden County. Now, this is something that you might see in other parts of the state, and you may even have run into them at some point down here at the Lake of the Ozarks area. But an interesting story you came across talking about food trucks, food mobiles, and Camden County. Yeah,
Camden County several weeks ago denied a special use permit for a food truck that was operated by Anthony Bomarito, according to the paper, who I believe is a member of the Bomarito restaurant family from St. Louis. I certainly would make that assumption. And look, as regular listeners know here, man, I believe in liberty. And what liberty entails, it entails a lot of things. But one thing it involves is the right to buy food from a truck if you want to buy food from a truck. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. The idea that there's a blanket law prohibiting mobile food sales in the county, while common around Missouri, doesn't make it right. I mean, technology and have allowed people to, all throughout this country, to take trucks, adopt them into mobile kitchens, and go out and sell food to people and take food to customers instead of making customers go to restaurants. And it's great. I like the food trucks in the St. Louis region. Everywhere they're put in, they've become pretty popular. And local zoning laws in Camden County or wherever should not be used to stop it and protect the sort of brick-and-mortar restaurant industry. That should be a decision for customers, not government.
It is kind of interesting when you talk about, especially when you get into zoning and you talk about something like a food truck or something that's mobile. In other words, it's not a set restaurant like you have on such and such street. I mean, this would go from point A to point B. Is that possibly what could be behind this ordinance or this rule? Is that you have the mobility factor?
I think so. I think that's certainly what government said, and I'm not talking about Camden County here. I'm talking generally speaking. Governments will claim something like that, but too often they're using it to sort of protect the established restaurant industry in their community. And I don't know if that's the case in Camden County or not, but I think that's an unfortunate reality in many places. Look, it's not the government's role to protect existing businesses from future competitors, from new competitors. I mean, this happens all the time in our country in every industry, and this might be a fairly minor example in some ways, but it's one we can relate to because everybody eats, and almost everybody likes to go out to either restaurants or go for walks and get some food. And if food trucks can satisfy a market demand and bring the food to you, now with social media, these things can work. It was not a business model that really worked 10 years ago because you didn't have the easy use of quick internet and smartphones to tell people where you were. But it does work now, and it's great, and it's not the proper use of zoning to prohibit it. These trucks should be required to have the same business licenses and health codes that any normal restaurant meets. But beyond that, I mean, special laws against them, I think, are improper.
I guess we will keep our eyes on the food mobiles, so to speak, and see if maybe that ordinance has changed at some point, and perhaps maybe we will have some different businesses coming here into the Lake of the Ozarks area. David Stokes with the Show Me Institute. As always, thank you for the time, for the information, and if you would please give us that good web information for yourself and also for the Show Me Institute if folks would like to find out more about what we discuss.
Well, Manny, I always enjoy coming on the show with you and your listeners. We've got some funny videos, interesting videos about food trucks up at showmeinstitute.org. And we've also got some information about a forum we're having in Columbia next month on Monday, November 4th. Professor Joe Haslig of the University of Missouri and I will be discussing Missouri taxation and how it's too high on the taxes that really matter for economic growth. And that's going to be Monday, November 4th at the Hy-Vee in Columbia at 7:30 a.m., and people can register at our website. We hope some of your listeners can join us.
Okay. You said the date again, the 4th of November, is that right?
Right, Monday, November 4th at the
Hy-Vee
4th. In Columbia, and you can register at showmeinstitute.org, and I'd love some of Show Me at the Lakes regular listeners to be there.
All right, very good. Well, we will talk about that again next week as well. David Stokes with the Show Me Institute. Thank you so much for the time, sir. We'll look forward to talking with you next week here on News Talk KRMS.